Hello everybody, welcome to today's webinar. Today we're going to be talking all about the corona crisis in the education industry. So my name is Robin, for those that don't know me. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AF Digital. I'm 6-time Salesforce certified and continuing my journey all the time. Ex-IBM, lead BA and Agile PM, ex-Vodafone for a very long time in my career. And my personal interests are the future, business transformation, and skateboarding, although I don't really skateboard so much these days. If you want to reach out to me, it's Robin_AF Digital on AFD on Twitter and Instagram. Just to introduce my company, AF Digital, we're a Salesforce Gold consulting partner. We're also a Salesforce.org partner as well. We're a multi-cloud partner, so we specialize across sales, service, marketing, and community, and also a few other bits and pieces as well. Our value prop is really, it's really tied tightly to advisory and guidance around what you should be doing around the platform. We also help implement transformation projects, so getting you rapidly set up across sales, service, and marketing. And then we also have a managed service called TeamX, which is a hybrid across marketing and technology operations. AF Digital are a Salesforce advisory board partner for Salesforce. Sorry, AF Digital are on the advisory board for Salesforce partners. And this really just means that we go there once a year. There's 12 partners on the board, including really big partners like Accenture and Deloitte and Publicis. So that's a real honor. And we also specialize in the industry, the education industry, which is what we're talking all about today. And we do have a lot of cross-industry specialization as well. So we've got a fairly unique lens on things because we see a lot of cross-pollination between industries. Great, so that's the introduction. Let's just jump straight in and talk about the industry impact. So as we all know, coronavirus is forcing countries to close schools. Schools are either self-closing because they feel like they are at risk, or they're being forced to close by governments. This is actually about 2 weeks old, 19th of March. You can see that Australia is still open as of this. I think just recently, this is all changing. There's a lot of considerations with closing schools, and I think this is the conversation that's been dancing around a little bit, is whether to close schools in Australia. And you can see here, there's kind of a comment on, this is Scott Morrison. The other issue is the disruption impact that can have and put at great risk the availability of critical workers such as nurses and doctors and others who are essential in the community, because they would have to remain home and look after their children. So this has been a very interesting conversation, very polarizing. But this is the reality. This is what we're facing. And just like that, homeschooling became mandatory. And I think many parents out there are kind of having the experiences on the right, you know, where you've actually got a multitask and do a lot at once to take care of your family, to work, you know, all of those things. And there's also an issue. It's not possible for this to happen. So there's a growing digital divide around, you know, some schools and some families and communities. They actually don't have the necessary resources to work remotely, or to study or learn remotely. So that's the problem, is that not all education providers are set up. Not all people or students are, you know, have the privilege of having good internet at home, or laptops or things like that. So that's the problem, is this is escalating a much bigger global problem, which is, you know, a divide in the accessibility of this education. There is also a major issue with the international student bubble, as I call it. And there's a really great study that was written in August 2019, right before this all kind of blew up with coronavirus. And Salvatore published this article or this paper It's really well researched, that says more than Chinese students seem to account for more than 50% of all international students. So this is really talking about the international student impact. So 50% of all international students are Chinese. Many in 2017, they relied on Chinese course fees from anywhere 13% to 22 to 23% of their total revenues. So that's a huge dependency on that, and that's stopped. It's just stopped completely. So here we are. If we look at the the industry, this is really Australia's growth with international students. 2012, there was a peak around this time. I think this is GFC-ish time, and then there's a decline, and then there's been just constant growth in those numbers. So that's across all levels in higher ed. If you look at the ratio of international students per 100,000 people in the population, you can see here that Australia is killing it. If this was a competition, Australia would be winning that game. But this is the problem. If we look at the revenue from Chinese students, the percentage across these campuses or universities, as I said before, there's some that are really high, but this is such a big revenue dependency. Imagine having 1/5 of your revenue knocked out as a business, as any business. It's immediately gone, and there's uncertainty about when it will come back. So that's a really big impact that we have. And then if you look at Australia as a whole, in terms of everything they export, minerals, you can see here that's higher than 50% in minerals exports. But the fourth from the top is education. So under agriculture and manufacturing, education related. And this includes not only, say, course fees, but it's also the related spend of the people that have to come here, the people living here, spending on products and services. So that's the thing. This is actually a really huge part of the Australian economy, specifically Australia, but many other countries as well. Although specifically Australia, it's almost the highest. It is the highest. International students per 100,000. You can see it's right up here. This is the total number of international students. So you can see here that United States has almost 1 million international students. So they will be very impacted. UK, almost 500,000. Australia, we're almost there as well. But we have a very high ratio per actual domestic students. New Zealand also, which is concerning. So this is something to just watch. But for me, I feel like there's a bubble here. It's a bit funky. And I'm going to go into the supply chain and the cash flow and how that works in a bit. So if you also look at where these international students are coming from, they are all coming from China and emerging economies. I wouldn't call China an emerging economy, but I would call these guys emerging economies. And they're big populations. But what we know about emerging economies is they also have poor infrastructure and health services, and their ability to control an outbreak like Corona is, I mean, even in the US, it's hard for them to do, right? For a big population like the US. So what more a country like India or Vietnam or Pakistan? You've got these countries like Hong Kong and Singapore with low numbers, but these guys are probably much more likely to be able to contain that virus and truck on, whereas these guys, I mean, if they can't control their virus, they won't be allowed to travel into a country that can control their virus. Let's assume that Australia gets a hold of it. There's going to be very tight restrictions on who is allowed in and out. So it's just something to be aware of. And then you've also got these poor international students. I feel terrible for them. And they just don't know what to do, to stay in America or go home. And there's a lot of fear around it. They talk about stories where they don't want to go back to infect their parents. You know, that's the question mark that everyone's like, am I going to put them at risk if I go home? Can I stay abroad? If I stay abroad, what support do I have? Are the campuses going to stay open with whatever housing I'm in? Is there going to be health services available to me? So there's a lot going on for a lot of people that just kind of stuck around the world. Um, and yeah, I mean, Chinese students stranded overseas, as we're just saying, they can't get here, so it's very hard for them to get the value of that education. What about the teachers? So the teachers have also been exposed to risk. I think they were the last bastion in terms of there was a lot of talk of corona not really affecting kids, but there's also an opposing view where maybe they're the spreaders. And the poor teachers just have to keep working and keep teaching with large classrooms until further notice. So, you know, I could imagine the anxiety on those people. And then you've got, say, the situation where you're a teacher and you've got to do some work, you've got to parent, and you've got to teach. So you've kind of got a triple job, which is very interesting. It's a lot of pressure, whereas you used to be able to kind of outsource your childcare. You know, to childcare providers while you were able to go and work. And now if you have to keep working because you're under financial strain, it's just a lot of pressure on everyone. Um, yeah, and it's just a big experiment. Like a lot of these schools and organizations have never done online education before. So it's who knows what will happen? Who knows if it doesn't change soon, what the future will be. So let's understand the economics of the ecosystem. So if we look at the bottom middle is the organization. So we've got the university or school and the teacher. The university pays the teacher money, and the teacher teaches to the population of students. The government subsidizes the organization in many ways. There's a lot of subsidization that happens here for various reasons. They support these organizations. In various ways. And then at the top, we've got our students. So on the left, we've got our domestic. On the right, we've got our international. And generally with domestic, you have a fairly close relationship between the student and the parent, obviously. The student technically pays the university, although often the parent will pay. But the student pays that university fee to go and attend these classes for the teacher, who gets paid to do that, and there's some money flowing in. Then you've got the international students, and these guys often work with agents. So the agents are often the ones that are helping them go across to Australia, and they're kind of managing the process. And they're also, these guys, I believe in some cases, they get paid for that service. They also get paid by the organizations as well for those students. So as they refer these students actually spend quite a large amount of money on these international tuition fees, and boom, shakalaka, there's kind of a good money exchange, value exchange there, and everyone's happy days. So, and this is where we've got the organization who receiving government support. There's all sorts of things here like vet fees, vocational training fees. The government provides subsidies for providing those training courses and getting those students through it. So there's all sorts of things that are really driving the organization from a cash perspective. Great. So this is today, and there's a lot of variations of student. And you know, if you kind of, if I had a lot of time, I could spend a lot of time on early childcare, and then you go into high school, like you know, all the way through the ages, tertiary, uh, and then postgraduate, and then even adult learning, vocational training, all of those things. Slightly different, but similar banana, you're still paying someone to get taught by their teachers. So let's talk about this whole environment and what's happening right now in the time of Corona. And this is really where the rubber hits the road. You can see there's a lot of red. So I'm going to try go through this one by one. So start with the international student, can't travel. So there's a risk of that revenue just not coming in anymore. They may have already paid some, they may have to refund some, but either way, I can't really use your service that you had promised me through this agent. And if I've got payments back to the agent, I probably may not pay them, probably already paid them, but either way, I'm not paying any agent to help me go overseas for any time in the near future. Poor agent's going, oh my God, like that was my job, so he can't survive. This student is like, oh man, my dream of going to Australia is ruined. I really don't want to be here with my parents. I want to go meet Australian guys and live that life. That's that experience she wants. Um, so this is kind of all broken, and these guys just are stuck. They can't really do anything. They're on pause. On the domestic student side, you've got mum and dad. Dad has gone down to 3 days a week. Mum lost her job. Really terrible and stressful situation for everyone at home. Um, the actual domestic student has not really a good space at home. She shares a room with her sister, who's an annoying brat. Life is tough, and maybe her internet's not so good because her sister's also downloading stuff all the time, and uh, you know, she can't listen in to lectures because so her whole thing is ruined. She actually also planned to go to frat parties and have fun on campus and interact with people, and that was the whole value. It was an immersive learning experience. Um, she's also got this other anxiety problem. We've got this Maslow's hierarchy of needs situation cranking because now they can't even afford the tuition. Her parents like, hey, daughter, we've got to have a talk. We can't afford to pay your tuition fees anymore. Imagine how heartbreaking that is. She's going, oh my God, what's my future? Everything is broken. You've also got these organizations that are sitting here with no students, no teachers, and they've got some redundancy and stuff. Let's not kind of ignore the other people that work at the schools that don't teach, that maintain the buildings and maintain the services and support the teachers in their job. Teachers are really just the tip of the iceberg in the organizational hierarchy. So then you've got these teachers. So these teachers, fortunately, are still getting paid because they are really necessary. And these guys are providing distance education to these guys. So, and that's cool. It's kind of like we're making it work. The teacher has a fear of lecture capture. And this is a very, very real fear. So what this means is that once I put it out there, it can be recorded and then you can just automate it over and over again. So my one lecture could just be part of a program that gets automated to hundreds of thousands of people. So that's great. I mean, for me, I think that's an amazing idea. It's great for the organization. They can add more value to a lot more people. But for the teacher, what's my purpose? If I'm not here to teach people, to teach humans, and I just do one thing and then it's automated, and then there's a huge amount of things out there, there's a lot more competition for that education. What's my position here in this ecosystem? So there's that, and there's also this side, which is probably the greenest part of this whole diagram, is the stimulus. So, and this is really where the government hopefully will support these organizations. Hopefully. And I don't have a clear position on where the Australian government is right now, but fingers crossed it will support it. That being said, and this is what that study kind of warned, is because of this dependency on international students' cash, it's actually a high risk industry, given that this coronavirus thing is out. And the reality is that the parent over here, the taxpayer, is underwriting that risk. And now we have to foot the bill because that risk became realized. So that's taxpayer money in there because of this situation. So it's a very interesting ecosystem, and this is a very complex situation. But this is kind of my macro view, so I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's jump in to a live demo of Social Studio where we're gonna just actually look into, let me just share my other screen. We're gonna look into what's being said live on the education topic. Okay, great. That should be on Social Studio now. So just to give you guys a quick look, Corona, I've got a little workspace set up for it. And for those that don't know about Social Studio, it's really a all-you-can-eat social media management tool from Salesforce. It tightly integrates with the other Salesforce products as well. It's got publishing, engagement, and analytics. I'm going to focus on analytics today, but there's heaps of other cool stuff in here. So, and just to give you guys some background, the way Social Studio works is, well, the way listening works is it listens to keywords on the internet. And these are across social media, blogs, news sites, all sorts of things. What I've done is I've set up a Corona for education specific topic profile. And this is really listening in for keywords and phrases. So I've got things like distance learning. And you can see here all these keywords. So it's like online learning with some proximity. I've gone a bit tech on this one. And then and keywords Corona, exclude keywords bear. I don't care about the bear related mentions. So this is kind of how the topic profile listening works. What it means is that for each of these items, I can really start to measure the amount of conversation on each of the topics. Great, so that's how the topic profile works, and then I'm going to show you what that looks like in data. So, and this is amazing. So we've got 11 million mentions of education-related coronavirus posts on social media or the internet. So it's 30 days ago. And you can see where those conversations are happening really largely on Twitter and YouTube. So if you're not active on either of those channels, that's probably where you should start thinking about. If we look into those keyword groups, so this is actually the breakdown. So the number of people talking about university related coronavirus stuff is the highest. We can see here it's 70% of educated related conversations are talking about university related matters. So that's a very interesting thing. Distance learning is the next most popular, 7.9%. Shutdown, and so this is specifically for shutdown of schools or universities or campuses. Early childhood is also another key concern. Secondary school, kids at home, and there are a few other smaller ones in here as well. So very interesting. In terms of the sentiment, we've actually got, it's about 40% positive, which is quite a lot of positive. There's also about the same negative. So you can see there's obviously a lot of polarizing conversations happening online. And if I look into this trend, this is one of my favorite ones. So you can see here, this is over the last 30 days. These are those topics. So this is the last 30 days with dark blue as university related. Let's just take that one out. And then we'll see these guys jump up. So early childhood had a spike around 13th and 14th. I think there's a lot of work from home announced. Then shutdown was announced 17th of March. There's a big spike that's over almost 63,000. Just drill in a little bit more. So I'm really just kind of looking live on this. Yeah, one of my favorite ones is kids at home. This is people talking about kids at home, you know, while they're trying to work or trying to live. It's just a new way of life that we're all not used to. If we look down into the top, mentions coronavirus, university, students, learn, positive, that's a good keyword. Social, learning, crisis, health, kids. Yeah, so very, very interesting. And then this is a really interesting one as well. This shows you the curve by country. So you can see here, UK, it's been kind of, and this is education related by country. So remember, we're listening for educator-related COVID keywords, Canada on March 13th, and you can drill into these and kind of do a bit of a deep dive. I want to go back to my presentation though, but I do want to show you that there's a lot going on social media around the education topic. That's a global view. This is actually a Australia only view. So this is 130,000 in Australia only for the last 30 days. So it's a bit different to what we looked at, 11 million globally. But what you can do is, again, start to drill in on the problems affecting Australians. And you can see here these kids at home are, just change this. I really like using the influencer score sort feature because that kind of shows you what's really going on quickly. NT, Northern Territories Chief Minister providing COVID update. NT schools remain open, but parents can choose to keep kids at home. New South Wales Premier tells parents to keep children home. So you can see here, it's really, it's all about this conversation, and it's pretty dramatic. So that's cool. And then just one final thing I just wanted to show you before we move on. So that same 11 million, this is a workbench view of that data. So workbench allows you to drill in. So I can drill in on the data set and I can understand sentiment and all of these kind of really awesome features. But you can see here that we've got 25 to 34 as the most affected by education, or the mostly talking about it, which is very interesting. And I would be guessing, but I would say there's a lot of parents in the 25 to 34 and 35 to 44. I'd say this is mum and dad up here, and maybe an older with teenager. There you go. 55 to 64, they're very active on social media. That's quite a high number for that age group. And thinking that this is mostly Twitter probably, or YouTube. So there's a very active older population involved in the education conversation. And these young guys, 21 to 24 and 18 to 20, not so much, strangely. But I think there's a lot of issues that are discussed around parents is probably a lot of what it is. Yeah, so if you want to see what the top hashtags were, COVID-19, coronavirus, India fights corona. So again, these are education, hashtag education. There you go. Hashtag stay at home. So pretty interesting. All right, well, let's jump back into the presentation. Okay, great. So we've gone through a lot. We've talked about a lot of things. Let's talk about the challenges that are affecting the education industry. So I've rounded it down to my top 10. This is what I think are the biggest issues facing the education industry. Forced closures. So this is just a big issue. There's so many logistical things to figure out with closures. 2, international students. So we've talked a lot about international students, the revenue dependence that countries and providers have on them, but also themselves, they're stuck in many cases. They can't go home. Number 3, education provider tech. So this is really, we talked about the digital divide, and this is the education providers. How quickly can they actually go online? If you were to have planned it, would it have been a 4-week project, or is it a multi-year transformation project? Do they have the resources to do this? So the education providers really, they need to have solutions to facilitate their business model. Otherwise, they're going to be very much at risk. 4, student digital inequity. Massive, massive problem globally. Imagine all of the emerging economies that really don't have the resources. The parents don't have the resources. The kids, they don't have the internet access or the devices. This is a big one. I think for everyone, being aware of this is really important, because this is going to determine how the future goes for those people. If they don't have access to education, then they will fall behind. So that's a major issue for the world to sort out. Number 5, remote teachers. Similar to our students, they also need to be enabled on how to actually do this. It's a change of the whole way they've been running their thing. Like, this is their skill set, is teaching a classroom. And now we're saying, oh, by the way, maybe 50% of your skill set, you now have to just totally throw away and do something completely different. I don't know if 50%, maybe that's rash. I'm not a teacher, but I imagine for a teacher, it's a massive change to what I used to do 4 weeks ago. Number 6, hands-on or technical education. So if I am, studying to be a scientist and I need to do scientific experiments, or if I'm studying to be a DJ and I need to go in and use DJ equipment that the school provides, or if I'm becoming a welder or any kind of trade profession or anything like that, how can they get that education online? So this is really a big challenge for the industry, is that technical education remote is going to be a challenge. I don't think there's a clear answer for a lot of schools. I mean, it's one thing to have the challenge of having that education provided technology to have remote classrooms. It's another thing to have remote welding facilities. Yeah, so that's a tough one. Number 7, disadvantaged or struggling families. And this kind of ties back to the digital inequity, but this is really, a lot of the time, kids going to school was kind of really helping out the situation, and they were just one step away from falling out of that system. And so by not having a structured school environment, these kids may fall out of the system. They may fall through the cracks, and have very different futures than if they could go to a structured school every day. So this is a really big social problem I think the world is going to face for the next few years. Hopefully, this will remedy itself pretty quickly. Number 8, physical, social, and mental well-being. We're all working from home, we're all isolated in some way, or we're all crowded with family members. Either way, we all need to really be aware of the physical, social, and mental impact on us as human beings. Number 9, student fees and expenses. So this is a very sensitive subject, and I'm not claiming to have the answer on this one, but I do have I guess a challenge for the industry is, what is the value of those very high tuition fees if it's you don't have all the facilities anymore, or if students have a different experience now. Yeah, it's a very tough situation. And then number 10, commoditization of education content. So this is a less obvious issue that is going to face the industry, but this is related to the recording of teachers. So we talked about being able to kind of automate that process and recording one class and scaling it. So this is really where it becomes commoditized and lowers its value. Great. So let's talk about the tactical response. Those are the challenges. It's a bit of like bad news really all around, but it's not all bad news. So we're going to talk about the tactical response, and this is a framework that I recommend to just deal with those problems one by one. And then how to thrive. And how to thrive, we're going to talk about the opportunity. This is how we can actually transform and take full advantage of this disruption. So this is our COVID-19 response framework. It's very simple. So you've got a tactical response and you've got a strategic response. Focusing on tactical is really around how you communicate. Communication is everything. Seeking aid is also very important. And then adapting. So this is changing your immediate business to adapt to the current situation, be it financial, be it in your process, be it in whatever it is. There's an immediate adapt action that needs to happen. And then strategic, which is like, how do you actually roll out of this thing and grow and do better than your competitors? So this is the framework that I apply to any industry. This is how I apply my thinking to my business, is really to consider all of these things. And I won't go through all of this in detail, it's way too many words, but then I've gone through each of those 10 issues that we talked through. And across each of these different kind of pillars, I've then started to brainstorm some solutions. And this is just me being an analyst and problem solving. And so I've kind of gone through and said, okay, for communication, forced closures, we really need to communicate changes and updates in near real time to students, parents, and staff. Especially if the government are changing the rules every day, you need to be the one owning that conversation. Student connectivity, space, attention, the digital divide. A good place to start is surveying students. Can they study at home? Communicating regularly as well, like every day we need to communicate with them. Remote teachers. So again, survey teachers, it's kind of the same as students. You just need to know and you need to listen to their sentiment. Under seeking aid, students seek government support, seek technology grants for your digital problems. So there are many technology grants available in the market that you can access. So just keep an eye out for these because these will help organizations make this rapid change. Student fees and expenses. So my advice around this, and very sensitive, is just help students seek aid. Like same as you would help students with any other problem in their life today, schools should be helping them seek aid, guiding them with the right options, giving them the answers. That would be what I would focus on. And also empathy as well, I think, is the key for everything with Corona, is just express absolute empathy for everyone because everyone's going through this together. So I won't go through all of them, but you can see I've got a bunch of strategies. I've also laid them out in this format. So you can see forced closures, communicate staff changes, international students seek government, NFP aid, education provider tech. So we've talked about surveys, seeking technology grants, ensure you have an adequate tech stack to operate remotely. Like you need to look at your tech stack and review it. And then really you need to build a single student view, a single teacher view, and a single organization view. Once you've got those three things, then you're kind of rocking with something that's useful. And I'm going to talk a bit more about this soon. Student digital inequity, surveying and engaging and providing a very social education experience, remote teachers. We really have to check in with them and make sure they're okay and then educate them. They don't know how to do this yet. They haven't been trained on how to provide remote teaching. Don't expect them to lead the way. Someone else has to lead the way in your organization. Hands-on. So around this, be creative. There are many ways of still giving that knowledge, even if you can't be hands-on in the meantime. And then in the future, there's options like VR and AR, augmented reality. We can see that already. It's already on our phones. Yeah, so help parents seek aid that are struggling. Use surveys, track sentiment. Sentiment is a number. It's a trackable thing. Student fees, help them seek aid. And then the commoditization, I'm going to talk about this, modern education formats, e-commerce and marketplaces. So just to recap, and I've kind of summarized it all in a simple statement: communicate regularly and in near real time with students, parents, and faculty regarding regularly checking in. Seek government aid, NFP help grants, help others seek aid, practice empathy. Creatively facilitate an engaging online learning experience for teachers and students. So that's your tactical response. You've got to do those three things first. Thrive. This is what we're going to talk about soon. Reimagine the future of education with new technology capability, formats, and revenue streams. Did you get that? Reimagine the future of education with new technology capability, formats, and revenue streams. Exciting stuff. So let's talk about this now. Okay, so hopefully this is a wake-up call to everyone. And it's a very sensitive wake-up call, and we should absolutely practice empathy. But nonetheless, it's a wake-up call for many people that weren't prepared for this crisis. If you started already on a back foot, this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And it's a pretty big straw, so many camels will be broken. We need to start thinking about what is the new normal for education? What is the future? Literally now it's changing. It's changing much faster than we ever anticipated. Is education going to be commoditized now? And I would ask yourself this: what is the value of that one bit of content? What's the it's very hard because there's going to be a lot more of amazing content out there. Lots of people are going to be producing content. Lots of people are going to be producing online education courses. What's going to make you competitive if you're a traditional organization over a new young organization that doesn't have a lot of staff and a lot of heavy weight? So that's what we need to think about, is how do we really need to change? And if you're an optimist like me, this is a massive opportunity. It's just up to us if we grab it. It's just about taking that leap and having that confidence in the future. If you look at this is a study done by Bain and Company, and this looks at organizations during the financial crisis, and they described companies as either winners or losers in the recession. So they either took a big impact and then they just kind of plodded along after that. Whereas a winner took advantage of the situation. They somehow figured out how to turn a buck during this recession. They made a massive, massive increase. And then they continued to grow after it, just not at the same rate. You can have a massive rate of growth during a recession. Overall, your winners that focused on the opportunity really succeeded. Your losers, if they're still around, they're just still around. So I've got a few strategies for surviving in a time of corona, and I don't necessarily have all the answers, but this is just my opinion. Uh, I would look at demonstrating best practice as a organization. So you can see here already there's this press about this top Chinese university responding to coronavirus by providing a really amazing online learning experience and doing it rapidly. They provided more than 5,000 courses online just after 2 weeks. So what I would do is be like them. Google whoever else is doing it, just be like the best in your industry, just be better than them. And that's how you're going to survive, is by really providing a great experience. Because remember, these students have paid their bills and they're probably quite expensive. They're not getting what they really paid for. They're not necessarily going to be happy customers unless you make it awesome. So that's kind of today, is really reimagining your education approach. But also, I would encourage you to think about marketplaces. And you can see, I mean, everyone on this call would be aware of Coursera and Udemy. Everyone. So these guys have a great sustainable business model. They're not dependent on international students. They're not dependent on government subsidies. They are honestly just, providing a facility for people to learn. Coursera is a platform for learning. It's a marketplace. So it's a marketplace in the sense that they provide the location and then other people go and put their produce there for customers to buy. So you have to provide the platform where students can put their learning, and teachers can put their learning and students can purchase that through you. How different is that to how a university operates, really? It's kind of the same thing. We provide a campus and we pay teachers, and students pay us, and we facilitate the transaction. So it's just, what does the future look like? And the thing is, there's already proven models. Marketplace is a 10-year-old concept, so we don't need to really make anything up. So the other thing is really around your technology, and this is really what we see in a common organization. is that you have kind of all these different departments, and every department has a different data silo. By the way, I call this a CX architecture. It's a customer experience architecture. You've got the student on the right and the organization on the left. There are your channels in the inner right, and in the middle is your systems and technology. In this case, these guys are all kind of working in silos on all sorts of things. There's a learning management system that the student can access. Yeah, that's pretty common these days. Then marketing are doing their own thing down the bottom. A little bit of WordPress here, and that's typical. The future is really, it's really astounding. It's exciting because you've got the ability to build a single data model. And we're a Salesforce partner, so naturally I'm going to talk about it. Salesforce.org has Education Cloud, which has actually got a specific data model to meet the needs of the education ecosystem. That's really amazing because that really just answers the question out of the box. And then you can pepper it with other features that Salesforce has that are really amazing, like Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and Community Cloud. Also, I mean, it's just integrated. Single view is really what we want. We want to have lots of channels on the website. We want to have lots of channels for service. And we also want to have lots of channels for marketing. Having this kind of tech stack allows us to automate the customer journey or the student journey. So you've got this guy who goes through a student application process. They receive relevant email, nurture information on their courses based on their preferences. Did they interact with it? No. Send them an SMS? Still no. We'll maybe add them to an advertising audience and really target them with the same course content just to make sure they convert. If they do, we maybe remove them from the audience to save money on advertising, and we send them a follow-up email. So you can see it's kind of like this is how the future is of automation. This is why you sleep. This happens based on the trigger of them making an application. And this is very geeky, but I just want to show you on the left is the education data architecture, the EDA model, which is provided by Salesforce.org. It's got the same database as Salesforce CRM, so account, contact, case. You can see those kind of things there. But then it's got all of these other objects that are used to track education-related things like courses, terms, facility, course offering, application, etc. So this is really the future. This is one future that people can take, is to look at a strategic data architecture so that you can really track everything in your organization and trigger automations based on it, scale the organization. Yeah, I mean, this hopefully should be on people's kind of agendas now. On the right is the caution. So, and this is a caution for now if you don't do this. So in 2017, the average data breach is $2.51 million. And education is actually one of the industries that is kind of the middle of the rung in terms of how expensive that data breach is on average. So this is really why you need a data model, why you shouldn't be working in data silos, why you shouldn't be sending data files like student files by email. That's illegal. That's absolutely illegal. So I just want everyone to be aware that while we all working from home and being pragmatic and creative, you need to still respect data because there's financial implications if you abuse it. And no one's going to care if it's because of Corona. I don't think, if you have a data breach. So just be very careful. But you need to be strategic now. If you don't have this, we're talking about thrive, remember. We're talking about how you're going to level up and be competitive after the crisis. So I also just want to put it out there that Salesforce have a care package. This is a special announcement, and this is a limited time only offer from Salesforce, where they will provide 3 months free Social Studio for the use of COVID-19 listening, publishing, and engagement. So that means that if you are impacted by the coronavirus and you want to listen in to what that impact is to your business and manage it over time. Maybe there's ongoing issues. Maybe you have to track thousands of employees, who are all on social media, maybe talking about your company. So this is available to you. Talk to your account executive. Getting set up on social, it's very simple. And this is what I would recommend. It's really listening for your brand plus Corona. So anytime my brand plus COVID-19 gets mentioned, you can see here all of my and keywords, coronavirus and AF digital, excluding beer. I have a different one for that. So that's all set up. I've got a shared dashboard with my team. I've got tracking around publishing related to Corona, so I can report on everything I've done after the fact, maybe if I want to do a post-mortem. Engagement, inbound and proactive. So making sure you're listening in to these things. And if someone does mention your brand and Corona, you want to be able to reply and know about that. So really getting your engagement game on social. Real-time post report is really easy to set up, and this basically means that anytime someone mentions your brand, you'll get an email. So this time you can be informed about every single thing. You don't get a lot of mentions of your brand with Corona, to be honest. Hopefully not. And then finally, I would set up a weekly PDF dashboard report that's sent around to your stakeholders to make sure that everyone is across what's going on social with your brand, because this is a crisis. For those that are able to negotiate this package with your sales account executive, AF Digital are offering a free implementation for a COVID-specific use case. So we'll help you set it up for the purpose of COVID-19 related social listening, publishing, and engagement. Okay, we're almost at the end. So this is really a big opportunity if we grab it. Again, looking at this Bain & Company matrix. So this talks about the strategy to take during a crisis. So if I am strong, so let's start at the bottom left. If I'm weak market position and weak financial strength, so I'm like a little startup and I don't have reputation or money, then I need to go big or go home, consider selling my business, or an aggressive change. So you're not in a good position if you're down here. If I have a strong market position, but a weak financial strength, then that's really where I need to be careful. I need to get through the transformation. So urgent cost transformation is required. I need to make sure I survive as a business. And then I need to kind of reduce anything that's weight or not necessary and focus on what I'm good at and really double down on that. That way I should survive. If I am weak in market position, but strong financially, so I've got all the money in the world, but maybe a new business or an underdeveloped business. So it's really my opportunity to define that business, to invest in the core capabilities, and maybe cost transformation, but it's really like investing, and this is where you can take advantage of others' weaknesses, for example, or, acquire things while they're cheap. This is the time, if this is your position, you can acquire that market position, or at least the capability to gain the market position. Finally, if you're in a strong market position and strong financial strength, then it's really time to double down. You just invest in enhancement, build market share, leadership, proactively acquire. You're on the front foot, you've got money in the bank. Right now is your time to really kill it. So that's why it's hard for any one person to have the right answer on what any organization should do, because it's really up to a few different factors that are quite private to you. So just a quick recap is really just to make sure your communications are regular, near real time, seek aid and help others seek aid, adapt, and you're really responsible for creating and enabling this learning environment. And not just for students, but for teachers also, for everyone, we have to adapt quickly. And then finally, thrive. And this is reimagination, new technology, capability, new formats, new revenue streams.